My parents are telling me that they're going to actually disown me. Well, why would they do that, you're probably wondering. It's because they want me to pay for my sister's operation. But I'm refusing to do so because it's her fault that she's in this situation, and my family has enabled her for so many years. Let me tell you what my sister needs. Since my childhood, I've always been hardworking, but my sister Amy's consistently gotten herself into trouble. Before Amy was born, my family raised me with very strict rules. They had zero tolerance for failure in my education, so I worked tirelessly. However, when Amy was born, my family's attitude towards me changed. They spoiled Amy, lifting the strict rules that they applied to me. Consequently, I've always felt a sense of envy towards Amy, because while my responsibilities kept increasing, she had none. Amy had become so spoiled by my family's treatment that she was even trying to interfere with what I had. So, during my university years, Amy was in her first year of high school, constantly receiving complaints from the school. If I were in her place, my family would not let me leave my room and would impose strict punishments. However, they merely scolded and warned Amy. I could not understand the discrimination, given that I was successful and hardworking. When Amy reached her senior year in high school, she ended up in juvenile detention because of theft-related things to her friend group. My family's reaction was to blame themselves, saying things like, how could they not provide her with good opportunities? Even though I graduated from university with honors, my family accused me of being lazy and unsuccessful. As soon as I found a job at the bank after graduating earning a good salary, my family stopped working. And guess what? I became the one supporting them financially. I had hoped that by doing this I would gain their approval, and meanwhile, Amy was trying to hide her alcohol addiction, constantly getting into trouble and barely managing to graduate high school. Despite my efforts to be a good sister and guide her onto the right path, we would often argue about her giving up alcohol. However, my family blamed me for pressuring Amy rather than appreciating my attempts to help her. One day, Amy asked me for the money without our family knowing. Normally, I would have given it to her, but the amount that she requested was substantial. So I could not trust Amy, and instead I informed our family about it. That day, as we gathered at home and talked, I expressed my anger towards our parents for spoiling Amy so much, attributing her current state to their indulgence. However, they insisted that Amy would get better over time and have no real issues. While we argued, Amy claimed that the money was needed for hospital expenses. We were all shocked, and our concern shifted towards Amy. She said that she wanted to quit alcohol and needed a kidney transplant. Initially, I did not believe her, because this was Amy, who never did the right thing and always lied. However, when I saw the medical reports in her hand, I was deeply saddened. Despite all the conflicts, she was still my sister, and I was determined to support her in her treatment. Without informing my family, I went to a private hospital, thinking I could find a good doctor and arrange a surprise through my connections just to get a discount. I showed the doctor the medical reports I secretly obtained from Amy. However, my friend, he informed me that Amy was healthy, and I was disappointed. I expected a lot from Amy, but I did not anticipate her lying about such a serious matter. When I returned home, I shared what I learned from my doctor friend, and Amy tearfully accused me of slander, claiming that she was on the verge of death and insisted that I needed to give her the money. Despite my attempts to explain that she would likely get involved in trouble again after taking the money, my parents did not believe me. I couldn't fathom what else I needed to do to prove that Amy was a liar. My parents were adamant that I either provide the money for the transplant or leave them home, because according to them, I was undermining the family by fabricating lies due to my envy towards Amy. They mentioned having savings in the bank and asserted that they could manage without me. I was furious, realizing they only saw me as a source of income. I gathered my belongings and left the house. They always told me that they loved us equally, but despite having concrete evidence in my hands, they chose to believe Amy instead of me. I was their daughter, and the one financially supporting them, and Amy was the one exploiting them. I stayed away from home for a few months, going from the hotel to work and vice versa. A friend from, finance informed me that my family had mortgaged the home. Well, once Amy got the money, they would see the reality, but it would be too late. Then my doctor's friends called me and revealed that Amy was pregnant. I could not comprehend it at first, but my friend explained. I was reviewing Amy's medical reports, hoping my help would make a difference. I discovered that a few months ago she had attended a pregnancy check. Well, at the hospital, and it was evident in the medical records, and that's when I understood that Amy had orchestrated this plan to start a new life with her boyfriend and the baby. While pondering such matters in my hotel room, my mom called asking me to come home. Her voice was tearful and they wanted to talk. Well, for a moment I feared something might have happened to Amy or somebody else. So, in a hurry, I left the hotel and ran home. As my mom tearfully apologized for losing trust in me, and my dad expressed sorrow in silence amidst my internal conflicts, it was somewhat reassuring that my family was starting to understand and listen to me. However, I'd say that the main issue was that Amy was not at home. I asked them what happened, and they explained that they had mortgaged the house, giving the accumulated money to Amy for treatment. However, when they went to the hospital for a checkup, they found no recordings of Amy, meaning she took the money and she vanished. Now they were on the verge of losing the house as they were financially struggling. My mom apologized tearfully, and my dad apologized for not listening to me. And now they were seeking my help. Before helping them, I talked to them to ensure that they would not ignore me again. Simultaneously, I did my best to save the house from foreclosure, and even though my financial situation was not particularly great, while we were dealing with these issues, there was no news from Amy. I did not tell my parents about Amy's pregnancy, as I didn't want to add more disappointment to their already troubled sheet. Well, since Amy wanted to live on her own, I didn't feel the need to chase after her, scold her, or set her on the right path. Life would teach her enough lessons, and without Amy around, I found an opportunity to get closer to my family. Update number 1. Hey guys, I know it's been a while. It's been a year since my sister Amy left, and during this time, my family's been treating me better. Yes, I'm glad Amy's gone, but I miss her too. Those who used to label me as a bad sister for not addressing Amy's actions never said a word because their own intention was to talk. My mom prepares my favorite meals, and my dad engages in deep conversations with me. Why is it considered wrong for me to want my family to love me and treat me well? I'm not at fault for Amy's current situation. Her alcohol addiction and spoiling led her to get to this point. I'd been working overtime constantly just to lift the mortgage on the house, and I would return home late from work and leave for work early in the morning. I applied for loans and tried to gather debts from close friends, and my financial situation was not great for an average worker, so I was in quite a predicament. The bank was pressuring me about payments, but I did not want to burden my family with this information as they had already faced enough problems because of Amy. So, one day after finishing work early, I came home. I had not seen my parents' face properly for a while, and while having dinner at home after work, my mom expressed curiosity about Amy, and my dad was very angry, not wanting anybody to contact Amy. When my mom brought up the topic of being a bad sister, a tense atmosphere suddenly filled the table. I told them that if our family had not spoiled Amy so much, none of this would have ever happened. My mom started crying and left the table. My dad looked at me and admitted that I was right, and his face was downcast. So I turned to my dad and told him that I could also break, working tirelessly every day just to save the house. Instead of thanking me, my mom was talking about me being a bad sister. I mean, come on, it was so unfair. If I'm the one who's bad, well, let me ask you this. Why isn't Amy back? I went to my room confident that my mom had heard what I said. I had nothing more to say, and they should blame themselves a bit. I felt a growing distance between me and my mom, and we hardly talked when I was at home. Late at night, my mom came to my room and apologized, recognizing the effort I put into saving the house. She said she realized that I've been working hard for the home, and she thanked me. Was that all? Did I only put an effort into the house, trying to make them happy all my life with the money I earned? I had no more words, and the gap between my mom and me was widening. I had stopped talking to my mom when I was at home, and my mom suddenly expressed a desire to contact Amy, wanting her to come back. It was normal for a mother to feel that way, but I didn't want Amy to return because I knew even if she did, she would continue the same way. I told my mom not to do it, and my dad had not forgiven Amy. I warned that my dad might get angry with us too. My mom's concern was still Amy, but my worry was more significant. The bank sent a warning that if we cannot pay within a month, we would have to vacate the house. I was still waiting for the loan approval, and I borrowed from many of my friends. If the loan was approved, I could manage without being evicted. As I was leaving my room, I headed to the kitchen. I found Father sitting in the living room. I asked him why he could not sleep, and he said he just couldn't. So I shared the bank's warning with him and assured him that the loan would be approved in a week or two. My dad trusted me, and if we fell short, he mentioned that we had a few valuable items at home that we could sell. We spent the entire night discussing finances and potential solutions, and hopefully we could resolve the issue before being evicted. Update number 2. 3 weeks later, the bank approved a low-interest loan, and with the debts I had borrowed from my friends, I somehow managed to lift the mortgage. The house is ours again, but now we were in a very bad financial state because of a significant portion of my earnings would go towards the loan and debt. On the night we lifted the mortgage, I had a disagreement with my mom. She suggested that now that we got the house back, we could call Amy. I was on the verge of losing it. Immediately I told my father that if he did not put this house under my name, I would leave, and I would never come back. My mom accused me of being selfish, but I didn't care. I needed to secure myself. When Amy came back, they could ignore me again or even kick me out of the home. My dad said that he would do what I asked, and he also got upset with my mom regarding the Amy issue. So, the next day, we went to handle the title deeds, and the house was transferred to my name. My dad trusted me and said that I knew better, and finally I was being appreciated. I'd wanted this throughout my life, for my achievements to be acknowledged, and I had finally succeeded. My dad and I parted ways, and I went to work. When I got home from work, my mom was waiting for me in the living room. She told me that she trusted me and that I could handle everything, but she also mentioned that Amy was not like me, and that she was prone to making mistakes, and that's why she was always just worried about her. It was as if she was justifying Amy's behavior, which was caused by her own self, you know. I told my mom that I would consider calling Amy. My mom left this matter to me, and now I was torn between calling Amy or not, and after some time, with the fear of the unknown, I decided to make the call, because everybody would remember me as a bad sister in some way, but if I called, I would be fulfilling my duty as a sister. And if Amy did not answer, you know what, she would remain the bad sister. So I called her up, and for a while there was no answer, just rings and rings and rings. I was not expecting her to pick up anyways, and just as I was about to hang up the call, Amy answered, and there were shouts and crying baby sounds on the other end of the phone. Well, I told Amy that our mom wanted her to come home, and Amy, crying, expressed her desire to return home and apologized for absolutely everything. When I asked her what was happening at home, she didn't answer and she just hung up. I guess she couldn't fix things and could not get rid of the baby either. So, she was remorseful, however. I went to my mom and told her that I had called Amy and that she wanted to come back, expressing her regret for everything. My mom was crying at this point, and she said that she would talk to Dad. My dad was angry with us for contacting Amy, and we had a few days of arguments after that. However, my dad said that if Amy came home and apologized, he would forgive her. So my mom and I were waiting for Amy to come, and I spent nights in the living room waiting for the doorbell to ring, anticipating her return, even though I knew what was going to happen. I could not prevent the anxiety and stress from building up inside of me. Eventually, what I've been waiting for actually happened. Amy came walking through those doors at midnight, soaked from the rain. Additionally, I was faced with the thing I feared the most. Amy had not gotten rid of the baby. She brought it home. The baby cries, and I heard on the phone it shows up right here into reality. But I had comforted myself by thinking it belonged to somebody else. As Amy stood at the door looking at me, our silence was suddenly broke by my dad's voice. Quickly pulling myself together, I ushered Amy inside. The three of us walked into the living room, and I lit the fireplace in case the baby might be sick. I asked Amy to take off her wet jacket, and the bruises I saw on Amy were visible, proof of the cries that I heard. When my dad saw Amy's bruises, he got really angry and starts yelling and asking questions. Amy, she could not hold back at this point. Her tears started going, and she was speechless. I immediately intervened, telling my father that Amy was not in the state to answer these kind of questions right now, and as he could see, she was in a terrible condition, and she needed at least some time to rest. I sent Amy to her room, and it was a long night, exhausting for all of us. I was hoping that everything would just get better somehow. Update number 3. After Amy came home, we were in the midst of breakfast preparations. While my mom and dad suggested not confronting Amy until after breakfast, they insisted on having a calm conversation in the living room once breakfast was over. Amy shortly joined us in the kitchen and began having breakfast. During breakfast, we chatted as if everything were normal, as if the challenging days have never happened. Although Amy was initially quiet, she gradually displayed some of her old cheerfulness during the meals. After finishing breakfast and moving to the living room, Amy broke the silence with an expression of remorse, offering apologies. I urged her to tell us everything, emphasizing that if she does not, our family might struggle to support her. My father held back his anger, and Mom even tried to hide her tears, and Amy just revealed that she's become pregnant and decided not to get rid of the baby. Well, after her boyfriend Carter persuaded her, and they planned to run away together, deceiving us in the process. Initially, things seemed fine after they escaped, but as time passed, Carter became unemployed and turned to an alcoholic due to financial issues and conflicts. Amy left with no choice and had to deal with taking care of the baby at home. But Carter's behavior had worsened, and he began to abuse her. In a moment of anger, I could not hold back and asked Amy why she never listened to me, especially about deciding to keep the baby. Amy at first claimed she didn't know about the pregnancy, but later she accused me, asking why I never said anything when I knew that she was pregnant. I fell silent, and my mom, seemingly ready since the day before, resumed blaming and scolding me for absolutely everything. My dad, taking my side, held my hand and defended me. Unable to endure the situation, I left the house that day and decided to contemplate everything in the hotel where I stayed before. After staying in the hotel, my dad asked me to come home to prevent our family from absolutely falling apart. When I arrived, we sat down for dinner. My mom and Amy, in their own way, seemed to be enjoying themselves as if we weren't there, attempting to make me feel bad. I could no longer tolerate their selfishness, so I sparked an argument at the table. I got angry at my mom for indulging Amy, and even though I tried to stop her, I got mad at Amy for making a mistake and then blaming me. Yes, I knew about her pregnancy, but it wasn't my problem that she seemed too foolish to understand, as I had my own issues to deal with, you know. When Amy attempted to go to her room, I stopped her. She apologized, and she wanted to just blame somebody for the problems in her life. And since she could not blame my mom, I became the target for my only mistake. Well, my mom silently expressed her sorrow and apologized, and I had no words left for her. Before going to my room, I told them that I would not forgive them, but I would at least try to behave better, and they should remember that the house was in my name, so if anybody did not like it, they were free to go. Amy stood there in shock while my dad tried to support me, told her about how the money was obtained and how I had helped. Amy burst into tears upon hearing this, guys. I was tired of Amy's tears, so I turned to her and said that if she was upset so much, she could get help with the payments herself. After all, she needed to repay the stolen money anyways. Things weren't going back to normal just because she returned. Okay, I felt sorry for Amy. She's been through terrible things, but she needs to take responsibility for her actions. So, after that, I went to my room. I couldn't sleep at all due to anger and thinking about what happened, and I don't know, do you guys think that I'm actually at fault? Well, let me know. Update number 4. Hey, so a few days have passed, and during these days there's been tension in the house, and even our only calm day did not go very smoothly. So, moreover, when I was at work, Carter showed up at the door, frightening my mom and Amy, and my dad had gone to the hospital for a checkup an hour earlier. I quickly took leave from work and rushed home. I found Carter cursing at Amy when he was at the front of my house, and I yelled at Carter, threatening to hurt him if he didn't leave. Especially since he was committing a break-in, and I did have the right to self-defense. Of course, these were just words to scare him. Carter seemed uneasy and stayed still when he had heard the police sirens, then he fled. After calming down my mom and Amy, I reported the incident to the police. That's right, so that if Carter tried again, he would go to jail. My dad must have heard from the neighbors and rushed home. In the evening, Amy came to my room and handed me her phone. Carter was sending all these crazy messages and calling insistently. I told Amy that we would get a new number, and if Carter approaches us, the police will lock him up. Amy was somewhat relieved and went back to her room to attend to Darwin, her child. Since she was a mom, this much stress was not good for her, In the middle of the night, I was awakened by the sound of breaking glass. Carter had thrown a stone at the window and was attempting to enter the house. My dad and I went downstairs, and I immediately called the police, and you know what? My dad had a shotgun in his hands, warning Carter that he would die if he entered. So when the police finally arrived, Carter fled the scene, making our night restless. Guys, what should I do? After that night, Amy started to approach me with distrust. She told us that it would be better for everybody if she left with Carter, not wanting to disturb the family any further. Despite our attempts to stop her, she left the house, and I could not understand, after all the effort we put in, was it really that easy for her to leave? Instead of trying to overcome things together as a family, she chose to complicate her baby's life and just leave. My mom reverted to her unhappy state again, and my dad suppressed his feelings, and I was just extremely angry at the entire situation. Now, yesterday Amy left and I called her. She answered the phone after a delay, but there was shouting and the baby crying in the background. I realized that she had returned to the same situation. When I went ahead to warn her that if this continued, Darwin might also face violence, she defended Carter and hung up. I didn't call again, but I knew where she lived because she told us. I really needed to set my sister straight. So I got into my car, I called the police and provided them with her address and mentioned child abuse and domestic violence. When I arrived, the police were already there and they had arrested Carter. Amy was crying with Darwin in her arms. With all the things Carter had done to Amy and us, he was going to face significant charges. So I persuaded Amy to file a complaint and we got rid of Carter in this way. Even if Amy came back home today, she was just crying. My parents were shocked and I explained to them that Carter had once again abused Amy, but this time the police caught him in the act, and he's going to go to jail. My mom was taking care of Amy and my dad was furious about what happened. I was angry too. I told Amy not to go back, but she never listened. My mom, on the other hand, was encouraging her. So I told my mom that if she continues this way, she would find her daughter dead. And then I just went to my room. Okay, I admit I said harsh words, but sometimes certain things just need to be said. Otherwise, it could just be too late. They could not imagine how concerned I was when I saw Amy in that state. Final update. 2 years later. That's right. 2 years have passed since the event, and at the beginning of those 2 years, Amy was slowly recovering, starting to pull herself together. Our family had become closer, and Amy decided to prepare for the university entrance exam. She wanted to focus on her education, build a good career, and provide a good life for Darwin. We used to study together when I came home from work. sometimes going out and spending time together as sisters. In such moments, everybody just felt that things were getting better. However, I still live with the impact of that night, and if I had been late, Carter could have killed Amy. To ensure that Darwin did not suffer any psychological effects, we had him follow up with a child psychologist. Amy even started psychological therapy herself, while also helping herself with her studies. At the end of 2 years, Amy was studying nursing at the university. We discovered her strong interest in health, and she took care of everyone's well-being at home. Our son Darwin started preschool, proving to be a smart and charming child. During my father's health checkups, a tumor was found in his liver, and we frequently had to go visit the hospital for the treatment. My mom enjoys being at home and engaging in conversation. If anything were to happen to my family one day, I would consider leaving the house to Amy. She's developed herself to become a quite intelligent person, so it's my duty as a sister to help her become a good mother and lead such a beautiful life. As a family, we spent some time playing games at night. I also received a promotion at work, and after achieving good success in challenging times, I was promoted to manager as the previous manager of the bank worked for was being transferred elsewhere. My father, he was proud of me, and it was the most beautiful gift I've received in my life. In the last few months, I've been in a relationship with Simon. See, Simon works at Amy's psychological clinic, and we are considering getting married. Carter's sentence was extended due to causing trouble on the inside, which is something that reassures us. Lawyers also say that he won't easily get out of prison this time. Amy has become somewhat afraid of approaching men, and despite receiving treatment and recovering, some trauma has had a significant impact on her. Anyways, nevertheless, I will always be there for her. I hope you are staying strong and making the right choices, because some mistakes, guys, are absolutely irreparable. Okay, so OP putting the house in her name towards the end of the story, I think that was the best option because I didn't see another route in which that wasn't the right thing to do. Anyways, I do want to hear your thoughts on OP's sister. Yeah, we know Amy. She was going to be very difficult to deal with growing up. But the things that she did just kept constantly blowing my mind, and then the final straw just has to be when she decides to take the family money that was raised for her and just disappear into the sunset, straight up ghosting the entire family. Let me know what you would have done, or if you would have handled it a bit different. Guys, drop your opinions down below in the comment section. I would love to hear your thoughts on this one. If you guys are new to the channel, hello and welcome. My name is Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories like this every single day. So if you guys want to be a part of these daily readings, the best way to do it is simply to subscribe to the channel, and if you just can't get enough stories, go ahead and check out my other two channels as well, Mr. Reddito Animated and Mr. Reddito's Revenge. You can find the links to those down below, guys. Have a great one. I'll see you tomorrow, and of course remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.